Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Linn, and I hope you're well, and if you're not, I hope you're well soon. So, very specific message today. Right now feels like a very big transitionary period, a sort of limbo between one way of being and another way of being. So, it feels kind of like you've already passed the threshold, or if you're not there yet, you're about to, into this new version of yourself. But in that, there are echoes or, little whispers of your past patterns, past ways of being, past actions, or maybe habits that you would partake in when you were feeling a certain way. Like, say you were upset, so then you would binge watch a certain thing, or you would eat a whole lot of food, of a certain food, and but in a way that was a little too indulgent, and didn't really help you balance yourself, and wasn't really, it was like disguised as a form of self-care. Like, it was a way of being like, oh, well, I'm doing this for myself, but it was actually detrimental. So you may find that some of that is happening again. You're falling back into old patterns just a little bit, and that's okay. There's no shame in that, right? Because that happens to everybody, and we're all human, and there's times where you may fall back into something. And it's nothing to beat yourself up about. It's just to be aware of it, right? And remember why you don't want to do that anymore. What I think is happening, it's coming through, is that you may recognize a shift in how you view those patterns. So as you're falling back into them temporarily, you may see it from a different perspective of like, well, actually, this doesn't feel good anymore. Like, it used to satisfy me in some way before, or made me feel good before, but it doesn't now, because you have a different awareness about those types of patterns, about that type of behavior, that you didn't before. So that's coming through first. There's a lot that I want to get into, but it feels like a transitionary period. And you are stepping from one way of being to another way of being. And in that, there's a sense of death. Obviously, when we're transitioning, there is death, there is rebirth, but I want to note that right now, you're not fully into the new version of yourself. Like, you are in a way, but how do I put this? So I've been getting this message for like 2 weeks, maybe, personally. And these two cards are the cards that actually I kept seeing, and I also saw this bird like 3 times out in the wild and online, like, it's a whole thing. So, Foggy Bog, Patience, what's the number? Number 18. But it's funny because, and I'll tell you in a second. And then this one is Rainbow Waterfall, Miracles, number 31. So when I was actually pulling these, I had them next to each other. At first, I thought that the 18 was a 13, so then I thought it was like 1331. So maybe 1331 is like a specific thing for somebody, or 3113, or 1331, or 3113. And it's funny because I was watching a movie, and the rune number in one of the movies was 3113. And so I was like, okay, that's a thing. That's a thing that's happening. So, interestingly enough, if you look at the imagery, you see the mist and both of them, right? And you can see this faint glow in the background, and then here it's like there's an actual sun and there's a rainbow. The sun has actually come through the mist and is creating a rainbow, a miracle. But here, in the foggy bog, right, it's very stagnant. It's like there's a stillness. it's kind of like this anticipation of like, well, what's going on, what's happening? But this is where we're at, or where you're at if you're watching this, is a transitionary period of limbo, essentially, of what was before to what will be, essentially. There's a mist. And the mist, it calls for stillness. It calls for a journey inward. And there's kind of, there's a letting go of, again, like I was saying, patterns and things that you used to do. This is a specific pattern that I'm thinking of that may be relevant to someone, is you may be like, maybe in the past you were going through your own issues, or you some like maybe traumas or memories were coming up and you were having to deal with them. But then someone around you or something around you would become chaotic, or there would be a problem with someone else, and then it was like you would put yourself on the back burner in order to help someone else, or in order to focus on something else than your own pain, right? And it's all well and good that you want to help someone else, but I don't think you realize, and maybe you're coming to the realization, is that part of the reason that you were helping people like that wasn't just because you're empathetic, you are, but it's also because you were running from yourself. Somebody need to hear that. It's also because you were trying to ignore your own pain by focusing on other people's pain. Because if you're fixing, or trying to fix, rather, you can't really fix anyone else's pain, you are trying to help other people to feel like you are making progress without having to actually feel the pain yourself. Does that make sense? It's like you were vicariously problem solving for someone else, but you weren't actually looking at your own stuff. And you've grown from that, obviously, if you're here, but it's like you're really seeing that pattern now, because it wasn't fully conscious until now. So in this stillness, the foggy bog, the patience, it's like instead of just jumping into action, jumping into trying to sacrifice yourself for other people, essentially, and not sit in your own pain, like, it feels like you've had this pattern of where you're like, you see the pain that you're going through, you're feeling it, but then you're like, this really sucks, and then you're like, oh, I'm good now, and then you just go off and you try to help other people, right? Because it's like you think, oh, I just overcame it, I'm fine, right? No. No. Now you're being asked to really sit in your pain. That's uncomfortable, right? Especially like being still. If you've been a person who is constantly go, 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 or you're constantly feeling like you need to be helping people or like working towards something, right? Like you can't rest, you can't focus on you, then this is really difficult for you. But also, it is essential for you to step into this new version of yourself. Absolutely essential. Because if you continue with the pattern of jumping into focusing on other things, distractions, other people's pain, other people's problems, before your own, you're never going to be able to work through this and step into who you want to be, because that block will still be there. If you keep running from it, you're never going to be able to meet it. You're never going to be able to sit with it and to acknowledge it, to feel like everything. You need to be able to accept it. Accept that you're feeling pain. Accept that maybe you don't need to do anything about that pain. Maybe you just need to let it exist. Sit with it. Identify it, or just acknowledge it. Maybe you don't even have to identify it or acknowledge it. Maybe you just have to feel it. Maybe you just have to be in it. And you don't have to rationalize or intellectualize anything about it. Because I feel like that's something that you used to do as well. If you're resonating with that, take it or leave it. Whatever resonates with you and whatever doesn't, that's for you to decide. And so I also had these cards that I pulled. So obviously I showed you this card and the other two cards. I did pull some cards right before I started recording. And all right, so let's get into it a little bit. Here is Five of Swords. And interestingly enough, the Six of Swords right after, right? And it's kind of interesting, right? Because I'm going to show you. So, see the foggy bog, right? It's kind of like the energy of the Five of Swords. It's like you were stepping out of that into this uncertainty, this period between being someone who's in these patterns that cause so much conflict for yourself. And mental conflict especially is coming through. And you see like the vines and the worms, like it's just like, ugh, gross, like icky, you know? It feels like you're stepping through this threshold, right? Into Six of Swords. So you're transitioning, like I said, to this, to the miracles, to the rainbow. You see, when you're leaving, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. You're laying down the swords in order to step into this, to the rainbow, to the miracles. You're acknowledging where you've been holding yourself back, like how you've been trapping yourself in your own mind and not allowing yourself to just feel things instead of, again, rationalizing and intellectualizing everything that happened or didn't happen, or like around you, like other people's ish, you know, that you're like feeling responsible for some reason, but really it's just you running away from yourself. And also, I got the Ten of Swords and the Ten of Wands right at like one after the other. 10-10. Ending. You're done with that. Okay? You're going within first. You're focusing on yourself first before other people. Number one. And number two, you're leaving behind this mental gunk that really just keeps perpetuating old patterns of behaviors that are not helping you move forward into being that person that you want to be, that's able to create and embody what you want to be. Like, moving into that. But again, with this, patience, that's part of this, is that you need to be patient with yourself, okay? Because this isn't something that you can rush through like you used to do. It's something that you have to digest. You have to just let it be, right? Let it be. And in the past, you may have felt that you had to be in this constant ruminating, constant thinking, constant doing, right? But the doing you were doing was from fear. So then it never actually materialized. It's like you would take an action from a place of fear, thinking that it was you taking control of your life and doing something for yourself. And then you'd only do enough to where it would help the fear kind of dissipate a little bit. And then you'd be like, oh, and then you would indulge. If that, I feel like that might resonate for someone. You would indulge and be like, oh, I did what I needed to do. But meanwhile, you didn't realize that you were just satisfying your ego in that moment. You weren't actually taking action from a place of reflection and like what you really desire. It was more of like impulsive, compulsory. Like it wasn't fully, you weren't fully aware of what you were doing. And you thought that it was good because you felt good, but that was just your ego feeling good. Your soul was kind of like, what is going on? Like, you know what I mean? But you didn't fully realize that, and that's okay. But that's why patience is so important. That's why taking a step back before you take action is so important, right? And I could use my own example. I almost did something where kind of like what I was talking about earlier, where I'm dealing with my own stuff right now, right? And I'm in this foggy bog with y'all, like right now, focusing on myself. But something came up where a friend or like just a person in my life, someone that I know, and it's not relevant who the person even is, because it's not about them, right? It's like my own, I just saw a part of myself through this interaction. And they are going through a lot, right? Like this person's going through a lot, and then my energy instantly was like, oh, I gotta do something to help them. I gotta be there for them. I gotta do this for them. I gotta blah, blah, blah. Like, I have to. So then I wanted to meet up with them and go do this thing with them. But then, as soon as I started doing that, my whole body felt like anxious and like uncomfortable and tense. And I was like, why am and I hadn't felt anxious before this, but in that moment, I was like, wait a minute. I'm impulsively doing this. Not just from a place of, oh, I want to be there for that person. Of course, I do actually want to be there for that person. But it was also me trying to run away from my own pain by focusing on their pain. Right? And I had to take a step back and be like, okay, why? I don't need to be doing it like that. I need to focus on myself first. I can't put myself in a situation where I'm focusing on someone else's pain when I need to be focusing on mine right now. You know what I'm saying? That's the energy that you're in, and you may find those situations arising again where you have this weird impulsive, like, oh, I gotta do this thing to help this person. I have to be there for them, blah blah blah. If I'm not, blah blah blah, this happened. Like, take a step back. Just give yourself a minute to be in your foggy bog and forget about the world for a little bit, respectfully. And of course, it's good to be there for people, but not at the expense of your own peace when you know you cannot help anyone else without sucking yourself dry. Okay? Because there's no guilt and shame in that, ultimately. You may feel guilt and shame in the fact that you actually don't want to be there for this other person right now, or other people, or this situation, and you don't have to be, but you feel like you have to be because of guilt or shame. You don't. Sorry, there's gonna be some stepping about me. But you don't owe that to anybody, and there's no need to feel guilt and shame and anxiety over that. Your focus right now is you. You need to focus on yourself before you help other people. Again, it's like on an airplane, you have to put the mask on. Like, if there's a crash happening, you gotta put the oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. Because if you're knocked out, number one, you're abandoning yourself to help someone else. Number two, you're not gonna be able to help anybody else because you're knocked the F out, right? Like, you got no air. You can't breathe. Give yourself time to breathe. To breathe. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's so funny. I have this card, Rutilated Quartz, and it says breathe easy. I don't know if you can see that. But yeah, it says breathe easy. Yeah. Yeah. Cutting away things that no longer serve you to facilitate an ability to breathe easier in all aspects of your life. That's those patterns. Cutting them away because they don't serve you. They don't serve the new version of yourself, and they don't serve where you're going. So this is the time to really sit in it and to observe these patterns as they come up. Not beat yourself up for them if you fall back into them. It's okay. But this is the time to acknowledge it and not run from it anymore. So, I also wanted to show the 3 other cards that came out really quickly and then read a little bit from my notebook. Have the World. That's that, that 10, that energy, that ending, right? And then we have, funny enough, the 2 Swords and the Lovers, right? Both of these cards are cards of choice, by the way. Like the Lovers is the Lovers, but it's also about choosing. It's also about choice. It's about twos, duality. So you're choosing a different way of being, even though you may feel that the conditioned egoic patterns coming back up. But you're really at a point where you're able to observe them instead of just fully let them control you anymore, which is very beautiful. And I just want to say good job for being able to be there for yourself in that way and to sit with it and to the lovers. It's funny because with this, you're learning how to love yourself a lot more. You're learning, and it's not like you're forcing it, because in the past you may have thought that self-love was something to force. Self-acceptance was something to force, but that's exactly the opposite of what it's all about. It's not something to force. It's something to ease into step by step. And again, it's okay if you fall back because you're still making progress. Right? You're still going somewhere. You're still trying. You're still doing your best. And that's enough. That is totally enough. So the lovers, I feel like, oh my gosh, wait, this is a rainbow, kind of like on the other cards. Even the world has a little rainbow. Look, rainbow. So when you start choosing yourself, that's when you're going to be able to start stepping into, oh my gosh, wait, my notebook. I just thought of something I wrote down. So we're going to go to my notebook now because this is very relevant. I actually wrote down, you're finally choosing yourself instead of the fear, right? Right? You're beginning to recognize that learning, like leaning into your reality, not learning, but yeah, essentially you're learning. You begin to recognize that leaning into your reality, in this little foggy block, being patient with yourself and being present with yourself brings you the sense of peace you've been looking for. It's not something that you need to chase. It's something you need to sit with. And that's bringing a realization of why people are always talking about meditation and breathing and like mindfulness, is because mindfulness is the place where you return to your body and your reality and you can find peace. Because you're not running, you're just being present. You're just being with yourself. And that's all you've ever needed to do, is really be with yourself. But no one ever taught you how to be with yourself. Everyone around you kind of gave you this example of needing to run away from yourself or needing to chase something to feel whole, but you were never not whole. You've always been whole. That's a lie, that you've not been whole, right? Okay, and I have one more thing I just want to point out, and then we're going to end this reading. It's my readings have been like 20-something minutes long lately, which is kind of nice. If you're still here, thank you. I hope this is not too long for most people. But, all right, so it says, this is a song. It's called The Promise by When in Rome. And technically, I think it's a love song, but it's funny because you can interpret, oh my gosh, the lovers. Technically you can interpret it however you wish to with music. That's the beauty of it. But these were the lyrics that really stood out to me. If you need a friend, don't look to a stranger. You know, in the end, I'll always be there. And when you're in doubt, when you're in danger, take a look around and I'll be there. This is speaking to the fact that you can be your own friend. You don't need to look externally to find peace. The peace is when you come back to you. The peace is when you come back to your own presence, to when you realize that you're actually okay in the moment. There's actually nothing really going on with you in that moment because you're present with yourself. You're safe. So when you're in doubt, when you feel like you're in danger, and this speaks to your nervous system too, maybe you're learning to regulate your nervous system. Remember that your soul and spirit are with you in that moment, every single moment, no matter what, always there. Even if there's no signs happening around you, you're not like fully seeing anything like that, it doesn't matter. You are a soul in a body. No matter what's happening externally from you, your soul is right there, chilling. Even if you're not aware. That's funny. Your soul is right there, even if you're not aware. But you are aware, okay? So it's okay to forget sometimes, be like, oh my gosh, I'm alone. But you're not really alone, okay? You're not alone. And I was gonna just say a couple angel numbers that came through kind of right before this. 999, 909. I actually woke up at 909 this morning, which was interesting. 202, 1202, 1515, 111, 222, and 333. So, yeah, you're taking time for yourself, being with yourself, being patient about this new version that you're stepping into, and being in that patience and in that self-presence, self-love, self-acceptance. That's where you're going to find all the answers that you need. If you need a friend, don't look to a stranger. Look to yourself first, okay? Even me, okay? Like, even people online, look to yourself first. Because you know. Spend time meditating. If you do Reiki on yourself. Like, I don't know, do something for you. Color. Watch a movie you love. Like, plant. Like, I don't know, what you enjoy. Just something that allows you to spend time with yourself like you're your own friend. Because you are, okay? I'm gonna go. This is getting very rambly. But I hope you guys are well, and if you're not, I hope you're well soon. I hope this helped you. And I will see you in the next video. Bye!